Hello, this week's art for 3rd through 5th graders is called the Blossom Trail watercolor. So we live in this beautiful valley and we grow lots of fruit trees, and you can even see them at school if we were at school. So we're going to do a very simple watercolor, and the key to watercolor is start out light and layer. But you have to let things dry depending on the style you're using. This is some of it's wet on wet, which means you make it wet with a little bit of watercolor, very light, and then you can go back in and add some more. Now, we make watercolor lighter by adding water. If you want it darker, you have less water, you add more pigment. So first I laid down the blue. You can see I took a couple layers to do the blue. Then I let that dry. Now I'm adding the blossom colors. I chose pink. And I'm not worrying about making everything perfect. Watercolor is not about that. And then in the middle of the rows, they have grass. So I painted some green, and then I thought it needed some dirt, so I painted some brown. I wasn't really happy with how all the brown, I added brown and even more, and I wasn't real happy. Now we're going to use some perspective, and we already have 1 point perspective by the way we did the blue and the green, because it's going back to 1 point. Now we're going to show perspective through size of trees. So the closer trees are bigger, right? They are thicker at the bottom, thinner at the top. My branches are not great, I'll admit, but you want the branches to be thin, thicker at the joints, right, to the other branches, and then they get thinner. And you don't need to draw them straight. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just kind of add them here and there. Make sure they look like they might be connected, but flowers are in the way, so you don't see the whole entire branch, and they need to go real thin at the tips. And so as we make our trees, I'm making them on both sides, and as we make our trees, they need to get lighter. That is also showing perspective. They get smaller and the colors get lighter as you go farther away. That's called atmospheric perspective. And you can help if you've painted too darkly. Again, I suggest starting very lightly, but if you paint too dark, you can use a paper towel. You should have a paper towel with you anyway. And you can just pat it, don't rub it, just pat it, and it'll pick up the color and make it lighter. And so I didn't think my trees were dark enough in the front, so I added more pigment to them to make them darker. I kind of added more to the base of them, and even in some of the branches, I made sure some of them were darker. The ones in front obviously are darker than the ones in the back. I hope you guys have been able to take a drive and see the blossoms this year. They've been beautiful. And so I also started adding shadows at the bottom, and when I did that, I actually added blue to the brown. I did put some green down there. I didn't like them, so I go back. And watercolor, though, is hard to go back and make it work. Again, you have to go light. So then I let everything dry, right? You don't continue to put color on color generally in this kind of a painting. So then when the top was dry, I went in with more of my red, but I had less water in it, and I made it a darker red. So not only does it show the variation of color of the petals of the blossoms, but it also gives us shadow. You have to put shadows because that's what makes it pop. That's what makes it look real. The values of the colors. And then I also felt that I needed to add some blue in the sky in the back. So I went back and did light amounts of sky. And I even, during my pink, when I put the pink blossoms, I did not fill in every little square inch of it. So I added blue to those areas too. Very light though, because again, atmospherically, the sky gets lighter as it goes away. And then it's done. Have fun.